and welcome to a new South Texas Pride Q&A. Today, I'm joined by Rachel Hill, Community Outreach and Engagement Manager for Equality Texas. Thank you for joining me, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So today we're going to be talking about Senate Bill 3, which limits transgender participation in youth sports, and also just about House Bill 10 and House Bill 25. So can you tell me a little bit about these bills and the overall purpose of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of lump them all into one bucket of anti-transgender sports bills. They are part of a huge string of anti-transgender bills that has been sweeping across the country. We've seen this especially in Texas with over 50 anti-transgender youth bills filed this year alone. These anti-transgender sports bills, what they do is they say that transgender youth can not participate on any sports team that aligns with their gender identity. So they would have to participate on teams based on an unamended birth certificate at birth, is what the legislation says. But I do want to make a point to point out that this goes well beyond sports. What this legislation really does is it says that those in power are going to determine youth's access to activities, to spaces, in ways that ignore their gender identity. So this is really about a bigger issue than just sports, but what access and what equality that transgender youth have when they go to school.
The Trevor Project most recently put out a research brief that says a majority of LGBTQ youth don't want to participate in sports, and many cited bullying and discrimination. What effect do you think this law would have on these youths?
Yeah, it would absolutely exacerbate that, right? So we're already seeing effects of just the debate on these bills. So we've had these bills floating around since bill filing started last November, so almost an entire year now. And through that time, we have already seen bullying against anti-LGBTQ plus bullying in schools across the state rise dramatically. Equality Texas, which is what I work for, we are not a direct service organization, but we have been getting reports of incidents, sometimes multiple times a day, every day, for the last month or so, where usually we would get a report maybe once every couple of months. And so we're already seeing, just not only in sports, but just generally, LGBTQ focused bullying increase by both kids and like administrations in schools. And so we're absolutely going to see this in sports too. And not just with LGBTQ plus kids, right? We're going to see this with cisgender girls who do not fit the model of that gender stereotype, right? If they're too strong, too fast, too masculine looking, this opens the door for anyone, a coach, a fan, a parent, to say, hey, you look different, you're too good, you don't belong here. And so those numbers are just going to get worse.
So what are some steps that Equality Texas is taking to make sure that these bills don't become law?
So we have kind of a multi-pronged strategy to make sure we can stop these bills. We have stopped them in the past regular session and 3 special sessions up to this point. And we have done that by really getting people involved, right? Making sure that legislators know that this is not a priority of Texans. Schools are shutting down because of COVID numbers. And so that's what we should be focused on. They can't even be open, and we're debating whether or not kids can participate in sports with their friends. So by spreading the word, by making sure people are contacting their legislators, coming to the Capitol, we do about a protest or an event a week to make sure that we have a visible presence, social distance and masked, of course. And then we're also really trying to encourage folks to take an active part in the media. So write op-eds, write letters to the editor, and talk to your friends and family about why these bills are so bad, because I think a lot of people just they don't understand. They think it is only about that sports piece, and they don't see how this is really a debate about the humanity of trans kids.
What's something that parents have told you, the effect that they've had on just hearing that these bills are going to become law or might not? What's something that you've heard from parents?
We've heard a lot of heartbreaking stories from parents. Parents whose kids have just completely taken a turn in how they act in school, and how depressed they are, kids that aren't eating and losing weight. We've heard from parents that are having those same stressors, right? This has now been kind of this trauma of having your identity questioned has lasted for almost a year now. And we are really seeing that take a toll. And not only that, but we unfortunately have gotten reports of kids attempting suicide or dying by suicide. And this is a real issue for us and for the safety of the kiddos in the state. Parents have been leaving for the safety of their kids. And in this whole process, we have had several parents who have the means and have the resources pick up and move somewhere where their kids are a little bit safer. But for those who do not have the opportunity to do that, we're trying to make sure that they have access to all of the supports that they need. But even the debate of these bills is having really widespread effects.
So last time a similar legislation like this also passed in the Senate, but was blocked by a House member before it got to the floor. The House Speaker now says that the House does have the votes to make this bill law if it does head to the floor. So what happens when this bill, if this bill becomes a law and it gets sent to the governor's desk, what happens afterward?
Yeah, I do want to just address a little bit of the framing of the question too here. So if we think back to what other bills have a lot of co-sponsors, the bathroom bill also did, right? So I know, the speakers pointed to the number of co-sponsors of this bill as a reason why it has the votes. But the bathroom bill had a similar number of co-sponsors and it never materialized. And not only that, but just the debate of the bathroom bill, the next election cycle, the author lost his seat in that race, right? Him and a number of other seats that were supportive of this bill. So I do want to caution folks that just because it has a lot of co-sponsors doesn't necessarily mean it has support. But if the worst were to happen, if this bill does get signed into law, we would fight it in the courts. Similar laws in Idaho and West Virginia have gone to the courts and generally have had, in Idaho, the law was put under an injunction by a judge appointed by Trump, actually. And they say the same things that we've been saying this whole time, that, this bill there's no evidence of a problem to be solved, like there is no threat to women's sports by transgender kids. And that the only thing that these laws do is really put a target on the backs of transgender kids, saying, either outing them forcibly just because they want to play a sport, or making them play on a team that they don't align with, right? They're going to be the only girl on the men's wrestling team, right?
What are some other bills that Equality Texas is keeping an eye on for this special session, and just what could be coming next? Because it's not, I know you guys aren't just tackling the transgender bills, but an array of bills that you have been fighting throughout the years for the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, absolutely. So this year we did see not only a record number of anti-trans bills, but a record number of anti-LGBTQ bills filed in the state of Texas. So for example, last session in 2019, there were only 19 bills filed, anti-LGBT. This session, with all of the special sessions, we are now over 70. We're at like 76 now. So this is a dramatic increase in the number of bills that are filed. One in particular that we have been keeping an eye on that has kind of been in every single session and all the special sessions is what we call religious refusal bill in the healthcare space. So basically saying that any medical provider, so a doctor, a nurse, a hospital administrator, could refuse service to anyone based off of that provider's personal religious beliefs. We're especially concerned about this bill because the way it's worded, it's not only religious beliefs, it also says moral or ethical beliefs. And this really just opens the door to anyone refusing services for almost any reason if you say religious, moral, or ethical, right? This seems to be, pointed towards the LGBTQ community in particular. And this one, even though it hasn't necessarily gotten a hearing in the special sessions, it did move during the regular session. And we don't really see it going anywhere.
Thank you for sharing that. And is there anything else that you'd like to include, perhaps a message for LGBTQ folks who may be worried about what's to come if this bill, were to happen, or any of the bills that you mentioned?
I would just say, remember that like you are loved, you are affirmed, like please, there are resources to help, right? And we are fighting these bills as much as we can. And please take care of yourselves, right? We've seen recently data from the Trevor Project that calls to suicide hotlines are up 150% from Texas from this point last year. And the message is get involved when you can, but also please take care of yourself and know that we believe in you and we're fighting for you and that you do have power here. We've just seen recently kids in Temple, Texas and kids in Irving, Texas have like staged walkouts to support their transgender and their LGBTQ plus peers, right? So you do have power here and you can wield that when you can. And when you can't, it's okay. It takes a village and we're all fighting.
Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today for this South Texas Pride Q&A, and I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much.